Green Senator Peter Whish-Wilson is backing the Bank of Queensland's calls to hit the big banks harder to help even up the playing field. Speaking yesterday on the program, Bank of Queensland CEO John Sutton called for the banking regulator to force big banks to have to raise more funds. Senator Whish-Wilson, who's also an economist, is also hoping to push the government into raising the $6 billion levy. He joined me from Launceston. Peter Whish-Wilson, the Greens is one of the many groups that have pointed out that the funds to be raised by the bank levy are going to fall well short of the government estimates. So are you going to vote for a 6 basis point levy?
Well, yes, we want to see a levy, Elise. We were the first ones to realise that the tax deductibility was going to be an issue, and the numbers weren't adding up from what we saw on budget night. We want it fixed. We want to make sure that we have a floor on the levy so it raises the revenue that the Treasurer set out in the budget papers. We've gone to the last 3 federal elections with a policy very similar to this that would have been higher than 6 basis points, would have raised twice as much. So we don't think 6 basis points is a difficult ask, and we would like to see, perhaps when the parliamentary inquiry starts into the legislation, this issue sorted out.
So wouldn't it be responsible to push for a higher levy now?
Yeah, well, look, the way it's set up is we basically have a floor in the revenue. So if that means it's going to be a higher levy, that's fine. We'll support that. We need to see the numbers. The Treasurer has said that it's an accounting issue with the ATO office. Either way, Elise, we just want it fixed. It shouldn't be that hard. I know the Labor Party is having a lot of fun with this at the moment, throwing mud at the government. It's probably embarrassing for the Treasurer, and it should be that they haven't been able to clear this up. But the bigger issue for us here, the most important issue, is that we get a good levy in place that raises billions of dollars that we can help pay for schools and hospitals.
So how are you saying that that floor would work? I mean, who would it be distributed to? How would the banks pay for it? Are they each going to top up, an average to meet the level that you think it should be at?
Well, we still need to know exactly what liabilities are going to be included in their definitions. We've got a pretty good idea, but if they can't sort that level of detail out, then we may actually need a higher rate. So we've come out in the last 2 days and said, don't rule out a higher rate if that's what's required. I know in the UK, when they implemented their bank levy, they had to raise it at least 3 times to get the revenue that they required. I don't think the Treasurer should be ruling that out. And I don't think the Labor Party should be out there saying that the Treasurer shouldn't rule out a higher rate. I mean, this is about raising revenue from the big end of town, from wealthy banks that make billions of dollars of profits. If we don't take money from them, then we'll end up taking money from poor Australians, which has always been this government's target.
The ALP are going to vote for this 6 basis point levy, so is the government. So are you resigned to it going through pretty much as it is?
Well, to be honest, Elise, although our office has watched this closely, and as I said the other day, we did our numbers and they didn't stack up, and we've sought advice as to why that is the case. I want to see when we go to a full parliamentary inquiry, a legislative inquiry on this legislation, what the issues are and how they can be sorted out. We'll support a 6 basis point levy if it raises revenue. If it doesn't, then we'll be pushing for a higher levy.
You're being lobbied hard by the big banks. They obviously know it will go through. What kind of concessions are they trying to squeeze out at the last minute? At
the end of the day, it doesn't matter what concessions they want to squeeze out of us. We're going to pass the legislation if it's good legislation. They've been insured by the Australian taxpayer to be too big to fail. It's time to pay that premium. In fact, they've still going to have reaped billions of dollars in excess of what they're going to pay in this levy. It might be worth pointing out, Elise, that the UK had this same debate. They had this debate, the big banks came out and threatened and cajoled and cried poor and all the same things we've seen in recent times. But we only heard last week from the CEO of Clydesdale Bank in the UK that they took it on the chin, they absorbed it and they moved on. And the debate's moved on. And I'm sure that's what's going to happen in Australia if we get this right.
Second-tier lenders are furious that because they don't have the implicit government guarantee, they've been downgraded by Standard & Poor's this week and are all facing higher funding costs, inevitably making it a less even playing field. How do you think that playing field should be evened up?
Right. One thing we'd like to see is account portability. This is also a policy that the Greens took to the last federal election.
But being able to move your account isn't so much the issue. The smaller banks are quite annoyed because their interest rates that they're going to be able to offer are going to be higher because they don't have the government guarantee.
They don't have an implicit guarantee. They do have explicit guarantees on deposits below $250,000. And then we have essentially a government guarantee on the short-term liquidity facility. So there are guarantees in place for all the banks, but the implicit guarantee is just something that investors price into their premiums for the big banks. Of course, they're not happy that they've seen a credit downgrade, but actually what it does, Elise, is support the arguments for taxing the big banks because they've maintained their AAA status. And of course, that AAA status gives them another wholesale funding advantage. So by putting a levy on them, they can't cry poor. At the end of the day, they're still getting a pretty good deal out of the Australian government and out of the Australian taxpayer.
Peter Whish-Wilson, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Elise.